What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. This is our first video on the horror channel in 2 years.
Well, and of 2023 too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Happy New Year.
So we always had intentions to come here and start putting content out, but life directed us in a different path for a while.
Right. But we're here.
For those of you that are new to us completely, because we do have other channels, we are HellaDepraved.
I think you already said that, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah?
We have a reaction channel where we do music reactions. I have a gaming channel. We do both gaming and reactions on Twitch, as well as live. Well, we don't. Gaming's only on Twitch.
Right. Have live streams.
But we have live streams for reactions on both Twitch and YouTube.
But we do intend on bulking up the horror channel quite a bit more. So
yeah, we're going to be putting a little more focus into this. So yeah, there's a series on Shudder called Search into Darkness, where basically they go through 80s horror movies and talk about them in detail. Each one's about 3.5 hours or so long. It's usually what we tend to go to bed to, since so many of the
It's a really good documentary, though. I've been awake for most of it.
We used to cycle between this, the Kane Hodder story,
right,
which they took that off of Shudder, sadly. There was another one that was on Shudder that they took off, too.
I can't remember which one it is. We do Eli Roth's History of Horror, Cursed movies. There's several.
Cursed films.
Yeah.
Among others. But yeah, so we decided we're going to start watching the movies that they talk about in order.
That they talk about.
They talk about them. And
even if we've seen them before, by the way.
The ones that they actually focus on. I'm going to say focus on, because they flash up a bunch of different movies.
Skip over some, yeah.
Everywhere, all the time. But the ones that they actually have segments specifically for. And this is the first one. This is going to be our review and our conversation about The Fog.
Right. The original.
The 1980 The Fog.
Right.
It was actually the first time I had seen it.
Right.
I've seen the remake, but I'd never seen this.
Exactly.
And we also have some Wikipedia information up over here so that we don't mess up people's names or their roles. Or
I was actually really happy to see this one, especially with such a Jamie Lee fan. Huge.
Jamie Lee Curtis, obviously big Halloween actress, among other movies.
Everything.
Among other movies. But she's obviously most known for her role in Halloween as Laurie Strode. Throughout the Halloween series, off and on.
Scream Queens. I mean, she's fabulous.
But yeah, she's been in a lot. Horror, something train. What the fuck is it?
Isn't it Scream Train?
Is it Scream Train? I don't remember what it was called.
But she's also in the
Prom Night.
Yeah, she's in so many different horror movies. It's not even. She is
and the original, in my opinion. Scream Queen.
Right. I like.
She's the one that basically got in my opinion, the term coined.
I like that she started off when she was 19, and one of the first scenes that she had to do included screaming. And she's like, "How do I scream? Who screams? Who screams?" And it's like, girl, you do. You do at this point, yeah.
Also stars Tom Atkins, who is one of my favorite horror actors. He's actually in one of my favorite horror movies, which this is going to get some people already to completely turn off of our channel. I absolutely love Halloween 3: Season of the Witch.
No,
It is actually my favorite Halloween movie.
It's an excellent movie. And honestly, if they had put it up as a standalone, not part of the Halloween franchise, it wouldn't have the hate that it has, because it's an excellent movie.
True. Well, and here's the thing. I wish they would have stuck with what John Carpenter's idea was.
Like anthology.
And make it an anthology thing where each Halloween's a different story. Because while I get it, Michael Myers is an icon, and 100% being a slasher fan that I am, he is an icon.
He could have come back, cameos, and
because they didn't do that, this is also the only slasher that has like 12 different storylines that branch off, and it's like, well, this is this over here, this is this down here. This is 12's a major exaggeration. It's only like 3, but even still, there shouldn't be that much deviation from a plot line.
I think there's 4.
The only one. Well, it's 4 if you want to include the remake. The remake's its own thing, though. I don't consider that a part of the main branch. Okay. But yeah, it's the only thing that I know of personally that has an even more confusing timeline would be the Legend of Zelda video game series.
Anyway, he's a good actor
Great
in
actor.
general, yeah.
Completely different now than he portrays in his roles, though. Like, we've seen interviews with him, and he's kind of hokey, is the best thing I could describe, and not in, like, a negative, like, annoying way.
No.
He's just kind of goofy. And it's not how he's portrayed in any of his roles that I've seen.
No, he's kind of the strong type.
He almost reminds me of, who's the guy that plays, like, in terms of tone, the guy that plays Hellboy in the original Hellboy movie.
Perlman?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He reminds me a lot of Perlman in tone.
Definitely.
When
I
acting.
could see that.
But yeah, love Tom Atkins. It's also got Adrienne Barbeau, Hal Halbrook, Janet Leigh, Nancy Loomis. We're starting to get into names I don't recognize at all.
But there's actually, it's a studded cast, is what it is.
Right.
Now,
John Carpenter
is
in it as well.
I will say, for a 1980s film, I was shocked at the balance in terms of audio. Yes. It was really
the audio
good.
was very well done and very well balanced.
You're not turning up the volume to listen to the narration or just the talking, and then all of a sudden the music hits and you're like, whoa, what just happened? It was very well done.
Shout out to John Carpenter. It's funny that we were talking about Halloween stuff, it being John Carpenter. Which I've also got his...
a lot is John Carpenter.
I've got his comic, his first one.
Yeah, his Halloween.
The Tales of Halloween or whatever the fuck it's called.
Those are fun.
And I got the second one on its way sometime next week.
Yeah.
But no, so John Carpenter obviously is the director and writer of this movie. It looks like Deborah Hill helped him write it.
Right. Which makes sense.
Right. Now
he does music.
Another fun thing.
Music.
You want to know how tight and round in a circle this goes? So Tom Atkins' name in this movie is Nick Castle. Nick Castle's also the actor that played Michael Myers in the very first original Halloween movie. Nick Castle and John Carpenter are actually really good friends.
It's fun how this kind of thing happens.
And then there's another part in the movie that in the interview with Tom Atkins, he mentions, or no, it wasn't even Tom Atkins. I think Nick Castle was one of the people talking about the movie.
He was.
His kid, I can't remember if it's a son or daughter, but there's a picture that they pan over on the shelf of one of the things early on in the movie, and it's a picture of his kid that somebody else is holding.
Oh, that's cool.
So
also,
that's
Nancy
really
Loomis was one of the actresses in this, and then you get Dr. Loomis.
Right.
As soon as Halloween comes out. So, I mean, like, people take inspiration from everything, but it's just
Carpenter
kind of
takes inspiration off himself.
Right. It's just very fun to see this kind of things show up.
Right. Among that, obviously, John Carpenter did the music, which you can 100% tell.
It was so good.
He does so well when he does his own music for his movies.
You couldn't tell that they had, fog machine problems with this. There was a lot of fog in it.
Yeah, that was one of the things he mentioned in the interview. He's like, I'll never do it again.
So, the problem that they had is this was actually filmed outside on a coastal line.
You want to know
close to a lighthouse. And the fog machine, as soon as they would get enough fog for the actual visuals in the movie, the wind would strike up and there would be no fog.
They were struggling with the fog. I want to know why they didn't, whenever they did the city panouts and stuff like that, I want to know why they didn't just build
I think they didn't realize that it was going to be such a...
that you could blow the mist through.
Yeah,
a lot easier.
I don't think that they thought it was going to be such an issue. It looked
good.
Stellar. Yeah. Yeah.
Great job.
Glowing fog.
Now with that, we're supposed to be reviewing the movie.
Right. We are. I mean, like, the synopsis is easy. It's the eve of a century celebration of the founding of this coastal town.
Right.
And the father, the priest.
Antonio Bay in North California, as it says here.
Right, which is beautiful. It's a rocky, craggy outlook. So Father Patrick Malone realizes his ceiling falls, But he finds a journal of his great-great-grandfather, who is one of the founding six, realizes that the money... Well, the founding fathers had a conspiracy to gain money because a boat of lepers had come asking for refuge further down the coast. And they were willing to pay in gold for the privilege of being able to found their own little colony.
Right.
And because the founding six were terrified of getting leprosy, which is very contagious, instead their greed took hold, and they decided that they would murder everyone on that ship and steal their gold. So the father back then actually felt so guilty about it that he stole the gold from the group that murdered them and has hidden it in the church. Now the thing is that it is the eve of the 100th anniversary. The fog starts creeping in. People start dying because there are ghosts in the fog. And it turns out that they are the ghosts of the leper colony taking out the descendants of the six.
And they're not descendants. They're just taking everybody out.
Well, they're going for the descendants specifically. But yeah, anybody who's in their way, just, it's casualties of war. So that is the premise of the entire story. Honestly, for what it was, because I thought this was a great movie.
It was.
It was a good storyline. Like, it was well explained. Like, the way that the story was dropped in increments. It didn't feel like it was too much at once. It wasn't an info dump, but it also wasn't like, just little stray tidbits here and there. It was a good story. It kept to the storyline. There weren't all these like tangential threads that came in and out. Like it was resolved at the end. It didn't leave, too much hanging.
The only complaint I had with the story, and this was one of the things we even talked about, was I was not a big fan of Nick Castle saving the priest.
Right.
Just for the priest to turn around and die. Now here's the thing. I wanted the priest to die.
Right. He was one of the descendants of the original
the
six
sins of his father and all.
Yeah, we don't agree with like having to pay for the sins of your father, but that's what the storyline was doing,
right.
And therefore he needed to also be eradicated at that point.
Right, but he like saves him just to then be taken at the very end, anyways.
Right.
Spoilers.
Oops.
It's the movie's been out for like 50 years.
If you haven't
seen it,
right,
it's on you. Has it been that long? No, it's like 40-something years.
Close. Yeah, I mean, like I was pissed off when Nick Castle saved the priest because, again,
she was like, "No, let him go."
Right, and then I actually did cheer when the ghost came back to take him later. So I was content. I was content. But I guess in the storyline, like for his character, it made sense because he considered the priest part of their township, their family, and he was the strong type that wanted to go about saving people. He is the one that picked up Jamie Lee Curtis's character hitchhiking. Are you weird?
Ah.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, good.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm tired of normies.
Wonderful way to introduce yourself.
But yeah, it was an extremely solid story.
Great acting.
And the acting, oh my god. Again, star-studded cast. Yeah. Obviously, at the time this came out, they were a lot more newer.
Well, they were fresh-faced to
actors.
Acting, just in general. I love that this was taken seriously, both by, the directors and the actors. They didn't overact. This wasn't over dramatized. This was not like horrendous screaming and stuff that you can kind of put with 80s horror movies, This was just really well done. It's how people would have reacted to seeing ghosts in the mist, kind of thing. It was very well done.
Right. So yeah, acting again. When we mentioned star-studded cast, I mean you got Adrienne Barbeau, Jamie Lee Curtis, John Houseman, Janet Leigh, Hal Halbrook. You've got Tom Atkins, Nancy Loomis. It's
right.
You couldn't have asked for too much bigger of a cast in a horror movie for back then.
Right. Very, very good.
The last thing that we usually talk about in a review are the special effects. Now, here's the thing. First and foremost, we will never, or at least I won't. I am not a stickler when it comes to special effects. In terms of, I'm not someone that prefers practical over CG. I don't care either way. As long as it looks good, it looks good.
If it's done well, yeah.
If it's done well. And if it's done shitty, it's done shitty.
I mean, but it depends if it's a good bad
or
just a bad bad. Right.
There are differences.
There's a huge difference, yeah.
Sometimes things are done intentionally to look bad.
Look, if you're on a low budget and it just ends up being good bad, I'm happy as a clam. Yeah.
Right. But we obviously have... I have no complaints with any of the special effects done in this movie.
No, this
obviously done all practical. There was no CG back then.
This was fabulous. Again, even with the difficulties with the fog, you would never have known. Like, after watching the movie, you would never have known that they struggled to keep the fog in place.
I was kind of bummed. My one hiccup in the special effects, I was bummed that throughout most of the movie you never got a clear look at the creatures in the fog until towards the very end. And then I was like, I kind of wish I would have never seen what they looked like because it's kind of... Because, to be honest, I didn't think their outfits were all that great.
They struck me more as Pirates of the Deep than they did lepers.
Right.
And I feel like if you're going with the whole, that's the storyline, that is who was on the sunken ship, the murdered souls, like, you kind of need to stick with what they would have been wearing.
Like, I would have loved to have seen them look more like lepers, a little more like lepers, a little less like Pirates of the Caribbean.
I mean, granted, they were zombie ghost things. So, I mean, I don't know how much...
I didn't even mean to have the actual screen up.
I don't know how much you would be able to, like, tell that they weren't... I don't know. I don't know how they would have portrayed that, but they definitely had the swashbuckler look to them, and that would be my only complaint.
Right. But yeah, over and above all, if I have to give it out of 5 stars personally, I would probably give it a 4 out of 5.
I'm going to go with a 4.5.
4.5?
Yeah, I thought this was extremely well done.
So that equals out to 9.5 out of 10?
Yeah.
There you guys go.
Yeah.
A great way to start off.
Right. It made me extremely happy because it's again, 80s horror. I expect good bad.
Most of the time.
For the most part, right? And so I always have a great time, but it's not necessarily up to today's standards and, you know, how it looks, and the balance of the music is honestly one of the things that irritates me the most at this point in my life, because it didn't irritate me in the 80s for sure. But now that I know that that's a thing, yes, I prefer. But, you know, this one turned out to be spectacular. It was a great way for them to start their documentary. It was a great way for us to start the list off.
Agreed.
It's Jamie Lee. I might be sort of a fangirl.
Yes.
Sort of.
So with that being said, I do want to say my goal, which is not going to be constant by any means starting off, my goal is to have 2 videos out for you guys in some way, shape, or form. At least 2 videos a week.
We'll try.
I would like to try for 3, but 2 is like the minimum I want to do. As long as we're doing little reviews like this, it's not really that big of a deal. It's like 4 hours of watch time and then about an hour of talk time.
Yeah, we will definitely try.
But yeah, so that is going to do it. We love you guys, and we will see you guys next video. Take care.